right, welcome. I'm glad to be here today. I'm with Kathryn Gordon. I'm excited to have a conversation with her. We've already been talking about a lot of great things that I know she's going to add a lot of value to what we wanted to discuss today. But she's an entrepreneur. She is an author. She's a movie producer. We can go on and on. But Kathryn, welcome. Maybe give us a better introduction of yourself than what I just did there.
Hey, Jeff, thank you for having me. I thought you did a great job. But yes, I am mom first. And even though my kids are 23 and 21, that doesn't stop for sure. And of course, a wife to Jon Gordon. And yes, I have been a co-executive producer of some movies, looking to do some other stuff, really neat stuff coming up. And embarking on a new adventure, which is my podcast called Kathryn for Real. So yeah, have some fun things going on for this next quarter of 2021.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, let's, so before we got started, we were just talking about different things we could talk about. And really, I think we could go into a million different directions and have some great conversations. But let's start with Relationship Grit, a book that you co-authored with Jon. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So Relationship Grit is really our story. It's our trials and tribulations, really our ups and downs and how we got through it. And in the book, we do give tips for having a good relationship, having a strong relationship. We've been married for 24 years, and, early on, it was not a good relationship. There was a lot of fighting, a lot of no communication. There was some infidelity. This is all in the book, and some illness. I had breast implants that almost killed me. So we had a lot of stuff going on there, and somehow or another, we're able to work through it all. And so we give tips on how to do that. Number one, of course, being communication is, it's amazing to me how many people are married for a long time and they have issues. And I say, well, did you tell them that bothers you? No. Well, it starts with communication for sure. But the title, Grit, Relationship Grit, Grit is actually an acronym. And G stands for God. And for us, it was really important to bring God into our relationship. So we also came up with a family prayer, and I can tell you what that prayer is. And we say it every night, and we have said it every night since its inception. And that is, God, we invite you into our marriage and family to love us, to heal us, to unite us, to strengthen us, so we can grow strong together and serve you together and raise children that glorify and honor you. And the second letter, R, is resolve. And you have to resolve to stick together. So many times we think the grass is always greener, things look more attractive on the other side. But most of the time, that is not the case. So stay where you are and work on your relationship and resolve to make it better and resolve to be better. We all have things that we can work on. It's funny, the other day, I can't even remember what was going on, but something happened and I said something to Jon, and gosh, I wish I could remember, because it'd just be great to give you the real detail, and it was a real absolute for me. And I remember, and then later on, when things didn't work out the way I wanted them to, I was so angry. And Jon's like, but Kathryn, you said that you didn't want to do this. I can't remember what it was. And for the first time in a long time, I'm going to admit this. I said, you're right. I did say that. He goes, wait, what? wait, what? So I have a hard time admitting I'm wrong. So again, you have to resolve to do those things and to be honest with each other. And then the next letter is I, which is invest. And that's very simple. Invest in your relationship. You know, we invest in our children, we invest in our work relationships. I think really our most closest intimate relationships come last a lot of times. We almost take them for granted. And so I always say, make it a priority. You know, make a priority to invest that time into your relationship. And then the last one is together, which seems obvious, but it does take two. You know, if it's just one of you that's working very hard to make the marriage work, chances are it's not going to work the way you want it to. So both of you need to commit and do it together. You know, it's that old saying, there's no I in team. Right. So that's the acronym for relationship grit. And in that, like I said, we share our tips on how to strengthen your relationship. Funny enough, we were on the Today Show and we wrote this book before the pandemic, which was, I feel, a God thing. Had no idea, of course, the pandemic was coming, and then the pandemic hits. And so many people reached out to us that got the book and were using it during the pandemic because all of a sudden, they were with their spouses or mates 24/7, including me. I mean, I had to use some of it. You know, I'm used to John traveling. I mean, my father was a naval aviator, so he was gone all the time. You know, my husband, I liked that my husband travels. I like my own space and my own thing. I'm pretty independent. And all of a sudden, he was literally by my side all the time. And we are so different. We are so different. And so the book really came in handy. But one of the tips in the book, and I think this is funny, so we did do the Today Show during COVID. And in that interview, I said one of my tips was to flirt in the kitchen, you know, but really was just to do the little things, right? Little flirting, a little text. I mean, I don't care if you've been married 50 years. We all love to flirt. We all love to feel special. And so I said, flirt in the kitchen. Oh my goodness, that went viral. I mean, the messages that were coming in about flirting in the kitchen, it was really neat. But again, it kind of shows you the simplest things. You know, sometimes you forget, like, it doesn't have to be this big production. It's the simple things. So that's relationship grit. So I'll make sure I get you a copy.
Awesome. I would love that.
Yeah.
Especially the part about the kitchen.
Flirting in the kitchen.
I was actually interested. You've kind of touched on that because I thought, you've got to be able to have that solid strength of a relationship with what we were just talking about, with how much Jon is gone right now on his speaking tour, and to stay solid like that. Because, I mean, pandemic aside, that's been your guys' life for how long?
Yeah. Oh, really? From early on. I mean, he started traveling. Gosh, I want to say we owned some Moe's franchises early on, and after that, so I want to say 2001 or 2002, he had already started traveling some, speaking. Yeah. So
that's gotta have a solid relationship there.
Yeah, and you have to have that. But I always say absence makes the heart grow fonder.
That's right.
Jon is a neatnik. I mean, in his world, everything would be thrown out. Nothing. He erases every email and text as soon as it comes in. I mean, he's always done that. And so then he'll call me and go, okay, could you resend that to me? I already deleted it. Or someone will send us a text and share the number, and I'll go, hey, can you share that with me again? Oh, I already deleted it. He's and my son's the same way, the same exact way. So, but when you're living with someone like that, and I'm just trying to get organized, but he just wants me to throw everything out. So yeah. And the biggest thing for us during COVID when he was home was, I'm the kind of person that, I don't know, I'm more spontaneous, let's say that. But it's also what he's loved about me all these years, right? Because he's very rigid and he's very, very structured. This guy is the most consistent person I've ever met in my life, ever. I mean, I've never seen it. And I'm probably the complete opposite of that. So, of course, when you're living together, I might have breakfast. And if I feel like doing the dishes, I'm going to do the dishes then. And if not, I'm going to do them later, right? That's just, oh my goodness. You going to do those dishes? You can't leave this in the sink. I mean, you like follow me around. Like, you're driving me crazy. I said, tell you what, if you don't like the dishes in there, you can do them yourself. But I had to say to myself, okay, I need to give in some. So I did end up, starting to do dishes more, I'm talking about 2 plates, but for some reason I just like leave it. I can't even explain it. I told him, I said, look, I am the most inconsistent person that you'll ever meet. And that's consistent, right? Somehow it works.
Awesome.
So
I'll
tell you a little thing about that after we're off air, though, because I don't want you to put that on the record.
Okay.
But trust me, it benefits him that I'm inconsistent, because it means that I'm not so rigid.
Right.
So
I hear a lot of stories, both good and bad, of spouses working together. Now, Jon has written, 23, 24 books?
Yep.
How was it writing a book together?
Okay. So we're going to go back. We're going to come back to that because that's a great question. And the first part of that, I want to tell you. So when Jon and I we owned I guess it was about 5 franchises of a Southwest grill called Moe's Southwest Grill. And so Jon would be running around from restaurant to restaurant. I was home. I would do the bookkeeping. I was doing the taxes. So I would do more of the accounting admin part. And, also Jon had written his first book. So I'd be on the phone calling people and trying to hype them up. Like, oh, you heard of Jon Gordon? You need to bring him in to speak. All that. Now, I had 2 small children and they would be, getting off the bus by 2. So I had to get everything done by 2:00. And so don't you know, Jon Gordon would walk in, and I call him Jon Gordon. There's a whole reason behind that, but I always do. Jon Gordon would walk in and literally ask me about I would do 50 things. And he would come in, he wouldn't ask about any of those. He'd end up asking me about the 51st thing that I didn't get to. And so one day he came in, and it had been such a stressful day. I had gotten so many things done. And he walks in the door and inquires about that 51st thing again, of something different, by the way. And I just blew up. Like, I completely blew up. So, what age group are your listeners, by the way?
You know what? It's usually late 20s on.
All right. So later on that evening, he wants to have sex. And I look at him and I'm like, I hate you. I hate you. And he I said, you're so rude, mean. And, I just went off about all that. And, he had already forgotten about it because that was business. And I go, And so anyway, you know what he said? He goes, I think it's time to fire you. I was like, yeah, I think so. I think you might need to hire somebody for this position because this is not good for our marriage or our sex life. So I don't know if that's TMI, but that's the truth.
So did he hire someone on then?
Yes, he did. He did. And you know what? I got to tell you, it was a lot of work. I think he was also able to see, wow, how much I was doing, but it was a really good time for us to, it was a good time for me to transition out of that anyway. Matter of fact, of course, he got busier, but he ended up having to have 2 assistants doing a lot of the work. Yeah. Yep. So that worked out very well. Yeah. So, but there was another question you asked me. Oh, writing the book with him. Okay.
Yeah.
So then fast forward, we're going to write this book together. And Jon Gordon is seriously, when it comes to writing a book, he's so good at it. Like he knows. So I write how I talk. I just talk, and I just wrote just like this. And then, when you read the book, you'll say, you could definitely tell it's me, my voice. But Jon was good about, so it started out that we did it together, and that was not working out well at all. We were fighting, and so Jon, I would write all this stuff, and Jon would go, honey, that doesn't go there. Like that you were supposed to tell that in this. So he was really, really good at knowing how to put the book together. So it's one thing to have a bunch of content, and it's another to know how to formulate a book to make it a great read. And I think he's gifted in that. But there were times when we were writing this book and a lot of those feelings and emotions were coming up. And remember, I spoke to you about infidelity, there was fighting, there was sickness. And as we started writing about those things, I started getting so mad about at one point, I'm like, I might actually divorce you over this book. Not really, but you know what I mean? Like it brought up all of our stuff. But anyway, we did end up getting into a really good groove because we did know that this book and the message in this book and the stories we share will be and has been something that would help a lot of couples. So we knew we had to write it. So finally we got into the groove, and the way we ended up doing it was I would sit down and write my chapter at his computer. And then I would get up and he would come down and write. And then I would read through his and do any editing that he would, because he's horrible with editing, and that's something I'm good at, and making it more understandable. And then I would type my part. And then Jon, so we'd kind of do it like that. And that we ended up getting into a really good groove with that. And so what our book is, when you read it, it's Kathryn's, I say, Kathryn's side, and then I say, whatever it is we're talking about, and then it's Jon's side. So it ended up being that kind of back and forth book. So it ended up being a wonderful experience. I'm sure we'll write a book again, not anytime soon. But yeah, it was good. It didn't start out that way. So, and it brought up all of our past hurts and issues, which definitely, there was some fighting going on, and then we got through it. So that's the book writing experience.
I'm anxious to read it and to be able to see it from that point of view, understanding who's writing which part, because yeah, I've read Jon's work, and I do love how he tells a story and portrays a message. So
yeah. And he's definitely has that gift for sure. And really, he would tell you it's a God thing. I mean, you know, he sits down and writes his books in 3 weeks, easy.
really,
oh my goodness. I mean, they're not big, but I mean, he sits down. So me and our children, we it's like, we call it like the birthing process when that happens. Every time we would know when it was time to write whatever book he needed to write, because I'm not kidding you. We say kind of like Mr. Frankenstein. He'd kind of get like, oh, like it was hard to be around him. It was like he had all this pent up stuff. And then we'd go, okay. And then we'd like throw him in the office, and then but we just wouldn't speak to him. I would just make sure I had food. And literally he would be in there and he would bang out this book in 3 weeks. Yeah. It's pretty amazing, really. And so it's so funny. His running joke is, somebody asked him, or they've asked him several times, do you have a ghostwriter? And he always says, no, I have a Holy Ghost writer. So, because he really feels like the message comes through, you know, from God.
Yeah. So. Awesome. Well, I'll make sure in the show notes, I'm going to put the link to your book and everything so our listeners can access to that. Yeah. But yeah, thank you for sharing that. Now,
and there's
well, sorry, go ahead.
There's a free action plan that is a really neat thing to do as a couple. And, you know, the questions like to ask your partner, what would be something I could do, you know, or on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you think I communicate? And then what would make it a 10? So, but it's a free action plan if you go to relationshipgritbook.com. So, yeah.
Okay, great. And I will put that in there as well. Relationshipgritbook.com.
You got it.
All right. I'll make sure that's in the show notes as well. Now, let's talk. One of the reasons I want to talk about this is because I'm excited to hear it. I want to hear more about Kathryn for real. And a couple things. Share with our listeners what you shared with me, how the name came about.
Well, yeah. So I was telling you, and you don't know me, but if you get to know me, I think probably one of the things that most of my friends would say about me is that I say the truth. Like I pretty much say it like it is, and I don't hold back, and I say what other people are thinking. And so there've just been a couple. I was originally going to do Relationship Grit as a podcast, and it just wasn't resonating with me to just do relationships or just interview on that. I just felt like it needed to be a lot more, because I have a lot more that I want to say and I want to share that, you know, it's not always about relationships. And so just in 3 different situations with 3 different friends, and including my husband, I ended up saying something or blurting something out where they each said, wow, you are for real. And different, it was crazy, you know, for me to hear that. It was a confirmation that, oh my goodness, the podcast name is Kathryn for Real. And that really encompasses everything that I want to share. I mean, I could think of several things that I know I want to interview on, and it falls right into that, right in line with being for real. So, yeah. And as I shared with you, and I'll share again, I probably need to pick a start date, and I think that would help me get there closer. I do have Daniel, Jon's guy, setting me up on the Apple and Spotify platform right now. I just took pictures so I could hopefully get a cover picture because I have an idea for what I want to do with that. I picked out the best music. I mean, it is absolutely goes along with what I want to do as well. And of course, I found out it was an Australian band they're copyrighted. So now I'm going to try to reach out to them and see if I can use their music. So I don't have a date for the start yet, but I need to get moving on it. And, I've had to deal with some issues with my son and then with my daughter selling this condo. So of course those come first because once a mom, always a mom, but right. It's coming down the pipeline. So
awesome.
Yeah,
well,
Kathryn for real. Yeah.
We'll make sure to help promote it when it comes out because we're looking forward to it.
So, and the other thing with that, I just got to tell you right now, for anybody listening that knows Jon Gordon is, I mean, he's approved. And I say that with love. That's what I love about him is he is, he is a straight and narrow shooter. And I'm not. So I say everything. And believe me, we go out to dinner with people and he's kicking me under the table. I'm just like, I could never really say. I end up saying something that, everybody loves to hear. Let's just face it. People love to hear it. But, he's just so this podcast is also going to give me an opportunity to just say what I have to say. And we're going to talk about everything.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I guess so. What are his thoughts on this?
You know what? He is okay with it. He is. Okay. He said, you are for real. I think finally, it's, only taken 20 something years, but I mean, let me just say it like this. Okay. Like every once in a while he'll say, gosh, maybe I should run for a political office. And cause he's a polygov major from Cornell University. I mean, he's got the background. He ran for city council when we first got married. I mean, he government economics. So, not seeing some things that he feels like he could help. And I said, look, I'm just going to tell you right now, if you do decide to run for office, I'm going to put out a mass social media campaign right away that says, yep, probably what you heard about me is true. The sex, the drugs, the rock and roll, it's all true. So, and if there are any pictures roaming around of me when I was in my 20s that are inappropriate, it is what it is. So, yes, let's just put it all out there. And he just rolls his eyes. But he goes, well, that, because that's who I am. Now, mind you, I say all that. That was my 20s. I've actually lived a pretty clean, straight life since then, but I'm sure there's going to be some stories told. So yeah, but now he just kind of laughs about it. Whatever, right? It is who I am.
And that's what's going to make the podcast so great.
I hope so. Because I do want to, I want to talk about things for real. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So for when the podcast comes out and just for everything else you have going on, where do our listeners find you and follow you and all of that stuff?
Yeah. So right now I'm on at it's Kathryn Gordon. Kathryn Gordon. KATHRYN GORDON, and that's on Instagram. And then for Facebook, it's Kathryn Carol, which is my maiden name, Gordon.
All right.
Yeah. I have 2 other Instagram accounts, but I'm realizing, and my husband actually said this to me after the fact, that gets way too complicated, that it's better to just do everything under Kathryn Gordon instead of trying to do each podcast name separate or the book. I have Relationship Grit and I have Kathryn for Real, but I think I'm going to go ahead and really post everything under just Kathryn Gordon.
Okay. Well, and those as well, I'll make sure that those links are in the show notes as well, so people know where to find you.
That's
but hey,
great.
this has been fun. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to sit down with you, learn more about the book, learn more about the podcast, and look forward to hearing more of what you're doing.
Thank you, Jeff. Stay tuned on that.
For sure. Thanks.
Bye.